Hello and welcome to another video. I'm Random and today I'm going to be reading the fanfiction Alternate Perspectives from the Fallen Star series written by Boxmaker. This is a Hermitcraft SMP fanfiction with a rating of mature, and the creator chose not to use any archive warnings, though personally I'd put in graphic depictions of violence for a few scenes. The category for this fic is general, and the featured characters are Etho-slab, Vintage Beef, BOO, DocM77, Good Times with Scar, Cubfan135, Iscal85, and other original characters. There are no romantic relationships, but the featured platonic relationships are Etho-slab and Vintage Beef, BOO, Etho-slab and Vintage Beef, Cubfan135, and Good Times with Scar. The additional tags are superpowers, alternate universe superheroes/superpowers, injury, blood and injury, hijinks and shenanigans, drinking, heist, hurt comfort, non-consensual body modification, Etho-centric, oops, I gave him trauma, kidnapping, medical torture, needles. Don't worry, he'll be mostly okay in the long run. These tags make it seem dark, but I promise this is lighthearted. The summary is in the description, and now on to the story. Chapter 13. Reactions. There was something tickling Etho's nose. Still half asleep, he batted it away, but it kept springing right back into the same position. He cracked an eye open and groaned, because past Etho had made poor decisions the night before, and now here he was, hungover, sprawled out on the couch with the sun shining on his face. Keeping his eyes shut, he snapped into third-person view to see what the fuck? He was covered head to toe in vines, which were woven across his chest. They were leafy enough that he couldn't see himself in some places. Etho sat up with a start, trying to remember what the hell he had gotten up to last night. With a pop, the vines vanished and were replaced with B-dubs, who was now straddling his waist. Etho yelled because he had forgotten B-dubs could do that. I mean, what the hell? B-dubs yelled incoherent nonsense right back at him. Beef slid into the living room wide-eyed, baseball bat hung over his shoulder. Is he going to carry that thing everywhere? Etho thought. Beef snorted when he saw the two of them and lowered the bat. Quit laughing, this doesn't concern you. B-dubs snapped at Beef, causing him to laugh louder. Why are you yelling? B-dubs admonished, looking at Etho, who was still under him. You're yelling! You scared me! You were a plant! And? I'm sorry, I wasn't expecting to wake up with a fucking leaf in my face. My leaves are beautiful, and sometimes I go to bed and wake up a plant. Etho's breath steadied and returned to a fairly normal pace. Well, as normal as it could be when there was someone sitting on him. How does that even work? Plants don't sleep. Beef was still cracking up on the other side of the living room. He was sitting on the floor, wiping the tears from his eyes. B-dubs ignored Etho's question and looked over at Beef. You got a problem over there? Something funny? He shouted, climbing to his feet. Beef pulled out his phone and faced it towards them. You had a fight over who got Etho's bed and who got the couch, and you idiots couldn't come to an agreement. Etho squinted at the photo of himself and B-dubs crammed together on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. He groaned and hid his face in his hands. He had taken his mask off at some point last night. We are never living this down. B-dubs and Etho headed over to City Hall together because Scar wanted to see Etho and B-dubs still technically worked for him. Etho figured he would stick around with the promise of helping B-dubs, although he was probably just going to end up a hindrance, but would somehow convince B-dubs they were still productive. So, Scar began as the three of them gathered in his office. Anything else you forgot to tell us? Any more files you managed to nab and forgot to pass over? Etho rolled his eyes. No, I only got the one I gave you. Excellent. Is there any way I could convince you to stick around? As much as I love committing illegal acts in your name, Scar, I'm retiring. An old friend told me it would be better for my health. Scar chuckled. He's probably right. Etho signed the paperwork Scar needed, while Scar handed B-Dubs an overflowing box of loose paperwork that needed to be filed. The two of them bickered over how they should be sorted. Despite Scar's innate charm, he seemed to be at odds with B-Dubs' loud yelling. That's everything then, Etho said with a nod. He stood, fidgeting slightly, unsure of what to say next. Scar extended his hand and Etho shook it. It has been a pleasure working with you. I doubt this will be the last time I see you, but I bid you farewell nonetheless, he said, eyes flickering between Etho and B-Dubs. Thanks, Scar. I'll see you around, Etho replied, turning to leave. Be careful, Scar called as Etho was halfway out the door. Etho grinned. I'm always careful. B-Dubs led him through the building, chatting animatedly about the beauty of the ceiling support beams when they ran into Doc of all people. He looked a bit panicked. Etho had never seen him so uncomposed. Why does everyone work here? Etho muttered. Doc's organic eye widened at the sight of them, and he muttered a quick hello before continuing down the hall in the direction of Scar's office. Come on, B-Dubs said, tugging on Etho's hand. He didn't meet Etho's eyes and seemed intent on pulling him away. Does he actually work here or something? Either way, that was really shady, right? Etho asked, waiting to see how B-Dubs reacted. I've seen him around before. I think it's something to do with a research grant? Yeah, research, that's it. You're a bad liar, B-Dubs. I'm not lying. Etho let B-Dubs lead him away while his mind raced. B-Dubs wasn't telling him the full truth, that much was clear. Why was Doc here? Research money seemed plausible. Scar certainly had enough to go around, but how did they know each other? It wasn't every day you just happened to meet the mayor. Unless... Is Doc a beacon? Etho blurted out. What? No, that's completely ridiculous. Silly, really? Doc's not a beacon, of course not. Etho wanted to grab B-Dubs and start shaking answers out of him, but he figured that would be a good way to get kicked out of a government building. Trust Scar to hire the next guy that came along. Maybe he really was expendable. He scoffed. Scar lying is something I'm used to by now. But you, B-Dubs? I thought I could trust you. B-Dubs' eyes widened. No, we are friends. I didn't mean to lie. You didn't mean to lie? It never came up, B-Dubs hissed, pulling Etho into a small alcove so they were out of earshot of the main hallway. There's stuff going on, all right? But you made it very clear that you were in just for this one job, so Scar made me promise to not tell you anything. Since when has Scar's word come between us? I've told you and Beef things that I told him I wouldn't. But he expected that. It's different, B-Dubs replied, peeking out from the narrow hallway to make sure no one was listening. They were close, with Etho towering over him, but B-Dubs had an air about him that made him feel much taller than he actually was. Etho understood that there was stuff B-Dubs didn't tell him, wouldn't tell him. He was just tired of the lies and subterfuge. He got enough of that from Scar. So, Doc's a beacon then. B-Dubs didn't respond. How many does Scar have on his payroll doing his fucking bidding? Etho, I need some time to think, he said abruptly, stepping away from B-Dubs. I'll see you around. B-Dubs called his name, but didn't follow him out of the building. It was cold outside, and Etho regretted not wearing a heavier jacket. He walked at a brisk pace down the street in the direction of his apartment. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he begrudgingly pulled it out. Beef had sent him a message. Dinner at 6, the three of us, maybe Ren and Pearl? Etho replied with an okay. Beef sent him a smiley face. He had just under 3 hours to sort himself out. Etho wanted to turn around, march right back into Scar's office, and start yelling until he got answers. Again and again, Scar had lied, or at least dramatically skewed the truth. And B-dubs? Etho wasn't really that mad at him, he knew that, but the rage had to be directed towards someone, although he felt bad for getting mad at B-dubs. After Scar's constant warping of the truth, B-dubs keeping Scar's secret from him felt like a slap in the face. Dinner would be good. They could all hang out like everything was normal and fine, and he could resolve things with B-dubs after. Everything would work itself out. At least, that's what he told himself, because it made him feel slightly better. He arrived at his building much too soon and saluted Laura, who was sitting behind the front desk. She didn't say anything as he wiped his ID and headed towards the elevator. He hoped Beef was home. He needed someone to rant to, although he wanted to keep the details between himself and B-dubs. It was their fight. He didn't want to drag Beef into it. The apartment door was unlocked, meaning Beef was home, and he slipped into the apartment, shutting the door behind him. The lights were off, which was strange, and Etho opened his mouth to call for Beef when his eyes flickered over to the sofa. There was a woman sitting primly on the couch, with strawberry blonde curls and a pair of heels that probably cost more than the very couch she was sitting on. "Hello, Etho," the CEO of AlphaTech said with a wide smile. "Do come in. We have so much to discuss." This fanfiction wasn't written by me. It was written by Boxmaker. You can find their work on Archive of Our Own. The fan art used in this video is not mine, and neither are most of the sound effects. You can find the proper credits for that in the description. I'll see you all in the next chapter. Bye-bye.